Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. So just as you thought there couldn't be any more hot topics to talk about, there's another hot topic up for governance proposal. Now, this is definitely a hot topic for anyone. The controversial subject of KYC. We as a community have suffered, I think, the most out of all of this. The most. I really think we are the ones who have suffered the most. But we're at a point now, right, where if we look at the Luna blockchain, we know the influence is there. We know the issues are starting to become very apparent. And if we actually look at their blockchain, they have a centralized entity, which is TFL, and only TFL developed the forward movement of the Luna blockchain. The rest of the validators are just doing their own things. They're developing their own projects, building out their own systems. So for me, I think the time has come for us to have some kind of KYC system, because we don't have a centralized entity, right? We don't have the privilege of this trusted centralized entity. And that's where the gap is between our blockchains on that subject. There's pros and there's cons to this whole thing. We'll be going over them. So let's get the proposal up that is in question, which is 12033. This is definitely going to be one you're going to be getting to know over the next 7 days. This was put up for talking, I think, some time back by Solid Vote. Now, like I said, KYC is good. The people who are proposing this are a KYC company themselves. They provide this kind of thing. So if this is to be voted through, if it does go through as a yes, we have to make sure it's not just them that are available to do that kind of thing. We can see that those other options are on the table in the proposal. But how I feel about this is, if there's a KYC company out there that's trusted and they provide a service, they can give out certificates, we should allow anybody to get their KYC with any trusted independent company or larger company, so to speak. But like I said, there's pros and there's cons to this. But with all of that, some of the pros to this, right? Like I said, we don't have the privilege of having this centralized trusted entity. We're going to have a lot of different developers working on the chain, doing a lot of different things. We'd be able to actually hold each person accountable, not even just the development team, but say one person on the development team is responsible for some kind of malicious code. They can be held accountable. So we will have a reduced risk of criminal activity, any kind of stuff like that. You're going to enhance security for both us and developers. There's compliance with regulators, which as a decentralized blockchain, we do still fall under certain things like that. And it's going to give our chain a level of trust and credibility even more than it does already. And these are kind of some of these attractive things that we can bring to our blockchain. It will set a gold standard, so to speak, for developers wanting to come develop on the chain in the future. Obviously, if it becomes compulsory, it's a totally different story. But over time, like I said, it wouldn't be seen as compulsory. It'd just be seen as the normal thing, a rule, so to speak. So there are some disadvantages. Some of these being privacy and data breaches, which if you're with independent companies and trusted companies, I don't see that as an issue. So some people would say there's inaccessibility issues and unnecessary barriers, which, like I said, you're going to need to allow people to go for cheaper services as well as more expensive services, because one of the issues, more a con, would be high cost of getting KYC'd. But I would say to myself, the amount of money they can earn from that KYC would be very significant compared to what they paid for it, if that makes sense, right? So if we're talking about all of these things, we're throwing out the pros, we're throwing out the cons. What I actually believe is there's going to be a big issue getting this even relatively close to passing, for the simple fact that the chain is more or less controlled by Luna validators at this point. They've got all of the voting power. They've got all of the control. So it's a really scary subject when it comes down to things. But let's take a look at the actual proposal from Solid Vote. And this was published 5 months ago. So this has been well overdue. What I like to say to myself is, there's going to be all sorts of different discussions on topics, but you'll never get a definitive answer of yes or no unless you propose and actually see what comes from it. So like I said, there are different companies listed on here, but what I would rather see is no list of companies realistically provided. There just be free range to go and get a KYC, as long as the company is, it's all going to be circumstantial, I think, but removing the barriers in that sense is really going to help. Obviously, we can't expect the blockchain or whoever's sort of handling this KYC system, so to speak, because like I said, everything requires some kind of centralized person behind things. Everybody wants things to be merged. Okay, so we need a team to handle the repository, which is what the L1 do. They've been doing this for a long time. And believe me, they haven't been paid. You can go and check. They haven't been paid since last year. So for nearly 7 months, they've been working for nothing, for just for the laughs. You know, I don't think anybody's getting any giggles out of being in those kind of positions. It's not a nice place to be. And this kind of alleviates that situation. Instead, the responsibility begins to fall on individuals if we do introduce a KYC system like this. But like I said, there's pros and there's cons to this, but my personal opinion from this is we don't have the privileges that a chain like Luna does with a trusted centralized entity. So moving forward into the bull run, if we want all of these different development teams, for example, all of the ones I've mentioned in previous videos, the Lunc development team, the L1 task force, Genuine Labs, TCC, who don't get paid, but you get where I'm coming from here. You've got all of these different development teams that are going to need to work. Those are probably going to attract more development teams as they start to pump out work. And what we want here is the developers to be able to bid, right, over the work and really kind of not so much throw each other under the bus, but compete for work. For us as a blockchain, this is good. What we want to see right now is the most streamlined effort that benefits us and benefits the blockchain. Because if we benefit the blockchain's going to give back to us during the bull run. We're going to run with everything. So I really do think we need to give some thought to this, but at the same time, I've seen different tweets from specific people saying you don't have the voting power anymore to even prevent a takeover. Like it's openly said. I'm not going to get the tweets up. I'm not going to give the person the limelight here, but it is being said. And they're simply saying you can't pass anything anymore. And that's very interesting. I think that's very interesting because a lot of people are very disconnected validator wise, not so much the community, but a lot of the validators are disconnected from the history of this blockchain. And that is dangerous. I think that's more dangerous than anything at the moment because they just don't know who's who, what's what, and who's a snake and who's not a snake. And as we all know, there's a lot of snakes on this blockchain. We've seen it time and time and time again. I don't want to consistently keep seeing throughout the next year us paying $25,000 and then another $25,000 and then $40,000 to a repeg team in 2 payments. We knew they weren't doing anything. We still said to all of the Luna validators, please don't vote for this. And they still said yes, right? Because they don't care. They're desperate. Any way they can keep the limelight, they'll keep the limelight. And it's coming to a point now where it's very obvious the influence here. You've seen my previous videos. You've seen all of the shenanigans going on and the coincidences. And it's all very apparent, like I said. So for me, because we don't have a centralized entity, this is definitely going to be a yes for me. It's going to be a controversial subject, like I said, moving forward. It's definitely going to be controversial and there's going to be a lot of talk around this. And there's just going to be 2 sides to this. The side who wants it and the side that don't want this. And the likelihood is you're going to see the Luna side don't want this. And the narrative definitely don't want this. And this all falls into my previous video and the idea of them never voice doxing and never wanting to voice dox, never coming on the podcast, being offered the podcast episodes, being offered Twitter spaces with so many different people, and you've never heard any of their voices once. They've never shown up in a space. They've never spoken. They've never done anything. And this is why KYC needs to be kind of a thing. But let me know what you think. All right. Like I said, there's going to be 2 sides to this. It's okay to disagree. It's normal. Folks, drop a like, drop drop a comment, drop a sub if you haven't already. I'd really appreciate it if you could do those things. It really does help the channel out, folks. Other than that, stay safe, stay humble, stay aware, and as always, I'll catch you in the next one.